Judging people's top 4 favorite movies. First up, we got Leonardo DiCaprio. He's running this level 7 cinephile build. Basically, his strategy is to just max out his film history stat by equipping a bunch of legendary items. He's got 2001: A Space Odyssey, Vertigo, and Taxi Driver. All of those are super OP legendary items. The only issue with this build is that it's pretty susceptible to getting spammed with the Pretentious attack. So Leo put up his defenses against that by equipping the Big Lebowski. And I gotta hand it to Leo. That's a really smart play because he's a film historian, but he also knows how to have a good time. I gotta give this build an A tier. And next up, we got Ridley Scott. He's going all in on the nerd build. He's got 2001: A Space Odyssey, Star Wars, Blade Runner, and Quest for Fire. Now, those first 3 picks are really popular in a lot of nerd and geek loadouts. Can't really go wrong with those. Plus, he's also got Quest for Fire. It's this rare item. Not a lot of people are running it. It's a prehistoric fantasy movie. Fits perfectly into the geek archetype. But the craziest thing about this build is that he equipped his own movie. That is an absolute power play by Ridley Scott. Not only did he make one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time, he then has the balls to just casually equip his own movie into his top 4 favorites. You gotta respect that. That is a pretty baller move. I'm giving this an A tier. It lacks a little bit of versatility, but overall, this is a really strong build. Jenna Ortega looks like she's running a level 5 art connoisseur build. She's got Lahan, Barry Lyndon, The Passion of Joan of Arc, and Paris, Texas. And all of these are fantastic movies, but this build has a critical weakness. She's gonna have to deal with a bunch of lower level anti-intellectual players. And you're just gonna keep on spamming the Pretentious attack against her. She has no real defenses against it. Unfortunately, this is a very low versatility build. Very strong in certain neat situations, but has a lot of weaknesses. For example, if you're having a movie night with a bunch of casual general audience members and you try to show them movies like The Passion of Joan of Arc or Barry Lyndon, they're not going to let you pick the movies anymore. So unfortunately, I have to give this build a C tier. Very good in certain situations, but it just has too many critical weaknesses. I can't put it any higher. LeBron James, he's got the old reliable level 1 film bro build. This is one of my favorite archetypes in the entire game. He's got Goodfellas, Coming to America, Gladiator, and The Godfather Part 2. You can make fun of this build all you want. You could say it's basic, you could say he's playing it safe, you could say that this is pretty much a noob build, but you know what? It gets the job done in almost every situation. The only real weakness with this build is that you're kind of vulnerable to attacks from higher level film snobs, but outside of that, you can't really go wrong with a standard film bro build. I'm giving this a B tier. Billie Eilish, and she's a great example of how to effectively min-max the edgelord build. She's got the Babadook, We Need to Talk About Kevin, I Origins, and Drive. So the Babadook is a common horror item that you can use in a lot of different builds. This is a really good baseline to start off when you're just beginning as a level 1 edgelord. And then after that, she's adding on some edgelord special abilities from Drive and We Need to Talk About Kevin. I mean, Drive especially is a really strong pick in any edgelord build. We Need to Talk About Kevin's a little bit more niche. It's kind of a rare item. And then as the cherry on top, she added I Origins to give some versatility to her build and round out some of her other stats. This is a really good way to play the edgelord strat. She's going about as edgy as you can get without people thinking you're a weirdo. I have to give this build a B tier. Can't go any higher because it is weak against people who are easily disturbed or easily offended, but overall still a very strong build. Charlize Theron, she's pretty much living proof that it doesn't matter who you are, anybody can run the dad movie build. She's got Jaws, The Matrix, Old Yeller, and Once Around. Now, you might think that Jaws and Old Yeller are redundant items to add into the same build, because both of them are movies where animals are major characters, but they actually are used in completely different situations, so Jaws and Old Yeller is actually a pretty strong combo attack. And yeah, I definitely think Jaws is a much stronger item, but Old Yeller is still a pretty good one to have in your repertoire in case you ever need a quick and easy tearjerker. And adding the Matrix is always a good move. It's one of the most overpowered items in the game, because it works with film bro builds, sci-fi nerds, dad movies, even edgelords. Doesn't really matter what build you're doing, you can always throw in the Matrix and it's pretty much always going to be an effective strategy. I've never even heard of that other movie she's got, Once Around, but honestly it doesn't even really matter. She could have put anything into this 4th slot. This still would have been a really good build. The simple fact of the matter is the dad movie build has always been one of the most overpowered strategies you can use in the game. I'm giving this an A tier. Jeff Probst, and if you don't know who that is, he's this reality TV host, and he's basically running a pure boomer nostalgia build. He's got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Boogie Nights, Almost Famous, and Do the Right Thing. All of those are more or less hangout movies that take place in the 60s through 80s. And yeah, all 4 of those are great movies, but the problem is that he's dumping all of his points into the boomer nostalgia stat. He's completely ignoring all of his other attributes, and yeah, I do kind of respect it because he is one of the strongest boomer nostalgia players in the entire game, but there's absolutely zero versatility to this build. so I have to give it a C tier. Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once. She's running a level 6 quirky build. And at face value, you might not think that any of these movies are particularly quirky, because Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and When Harry Met Sally, those are pretty popular romance items that you can use in a lot of different builds. But the real quirkiness is coming from the Decalogue and Flubber combo attack. She's combining the power of Decalogue, which is this renowned Polish miniseries from the 80s, with the movie Flubber, and together it creates this really powerful quirky synergy. Really strong move by Stephanie to come up with that unique combo attack. I'm giving this an A tier. Okay, say what you will about Zack Snyder, he's definitely directed a lot of stinkers, but he is running one of the most overpowered Letterboxd top 4s in the entire game. He's got this level 5 art house nerd hybrid build that includes Star Wars, All That Jazz, Excalibur, and Blue Velvet. I mean, this is just an amazing build. He's got the nerd game on lock with Star Wars and Excalibur. He's got one of the most powerful musical items in the entire game with All That Jazz. And then he's just rounding everything off with a classic David Lynch thriller. Overall, this is an extremely well-rounded build. It's so overpowered to the point where it's almost unfair. I'm giving this an S tier. Kirsten Dunst, Mary Jane from Spider-Man. She's running a level 5 psychedelic film bro build. She's got The Godfather. It's just a legendary baseline item that works in pretty much every single build, and it gives her versatility across the board. She's also got Paris, Texas, another one of the most overpowered items in the game because it increases her art house movie stat, it increases her defenses against film snob attacks, but it also actually increases accessibility to general audiences because pretty much everyone likes Paris, Texas. And then she hits you with her 2 special items in 3 Women in Persona. Both of these are high psychedelic damage dealers. This is another truly overpowered build. It has a lot of the same strengths that you get from a regular film bro build, but it also covers up a lot of the weaknesses. I have to give this an S tier. Elijah Wood, he's running pretty much a pure childhood nostalgia build. He's got the Goonies, The Incredibles, The Muppet Christmas Carol, and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I'm not saying that these aren't good movies, but unfortunately, dumping all of your stats into childhood nostalgia is not really a viable strategy. And okay, sure, this build can be very effective in very specific situations. For example, if you have a bunch of nieces and nephews who are toddlers, but outside of those very specific situations, this build is mostly useless. Elijah Wood will always be a legend for his performance as Frodo Baggins, but unfortunately, his Letterboxd top 4 build is terrible. I gotta give this an F tier. John Cena, he's got a very standard level 2 casual build. Shawshank Redemption, The Matrix, Saving Private Ryan, and Star Wars. Basically, John Cena's strategy is to pick 4 of the most popular items in the game. This is definitely one of the safest builds you can run. Pretty much everyone loves these movies. Now, the only weakness with this build is that it is very vulnerable to attacks from film snob enemies. But outside of that, it is a pretty good build because everyone loves these movies. I'll give it a B tier. Dakota Johnson, now she's running a level 7 old head build. She's got Casablanca and The Wizard of Oz as the baseline for her old head stats, but then she does add a little bit of variety, having Home Alone and The Dreamers in there. Still somewhat of an old head, but she's not so stuck in the past that she just can't appreciate anything made within the last 40 years. So you do kind of got to respect it. It adds a lot of versatility to the build. I think this is really solid. I'm giving this an A tier. All right, those are the best and worst builds in the current Letterboxd meta. Check out this video if you want to see the movie of the decade for every single decade from the 1920s through the 2020s.